Welcome to the All Eers podcast, powered by HD Media.
Come one, come all, the newest edition of the All Eers podcast, a WVU athletics-based podcast here at HD Media and the Charleston Gazette-Mail. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy. Thank you all for joining us. However you may be listening to us, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube as well. You can follow us on Twitter at Gazmail Sports, that's G-A-Z Mail Sports, on Facebook at HD Media Sports, and on YouTube, HD Media Game Day. Busy show today, yet again, as we like to be consistent around here at HD Media. We're going to be joined in our next segment with his weekly hit, Vingle's Views, and we're going to be joined by former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor and WVU beat writer Mitch Vingle for his weekly hit, talking everything WVU athletics. And we'll spend the majority of the time, if not all the time, talking about the college basketball crown and the vibe to it. What are we picking up from it? What's the future look like? How can WVU use it to their advantage following the 89-82 victory over Oklahoma in overtime on Sunday in Las Vegas? We'll talk to Mitch coming up in our next segment. But for the time being, let's talk about the now. What's going on in West Virginia University athletics? And let's start on the diamond, where the Mountaineer baseball team picked up a 12-2 victory over in-state foe Marshall Wednesday evening in 8 innings. They scored at least 2 runs in 5 of 8 innings played, scoring 3 runs in the first inning and in the 6th inning, taking the 10-run victory over the Thundering Herd on Wednesday at Kendrick Family Ballpark. Marshall had 2 runs on 8 hits, 0 errors on Wednesday at Kendrick Family Ballpark. Marshall falls to 14-8 on the season, while WVU moves to 23-7 on the season. The Mountaineers will have a 3-game road trip out to Lubbock, Texas on Friday to Sunday, and they will take on the Texas Tech Red Raiders before coming back and playing a neutral site game next week against the Penn State Nittany Lions. In that game last night against Marshall, Gavin Kelly was arguably the story for the Mountaineers. He had been 3 of 14 in the last 4 games for WVU, but came out red hot against Marshall. 3 hits on 4 at-bats, 1 run scored for himself, 2 RBIs, 1 walk for Kelly. So congratulations to Gavin on a good game yesterday for WVU. Other news regarding Mountaineer athletics, DJ Thomas has entered the transfer portal, and he did so just a couple of days ago. He joins Jaden Forshai and Evan Barnings as the other 2 Mountaineer men's basketball players who entered the transfer portal. Logan Johnson also entered on the women's basketball side, joining Logan Thomas just a couple of weeks ago. So in regards to DJ Thomas, if DJ Thomas weren't to return to the men's basketball program, WVU will have to replace its top 7-minute earners from this season. The next highest is Amir Jenkins, who will be entering his sophomore season. But talking about Thomas, if he was the 7th highest minute earner for Coach Ross Hodge in his first season this past year at WVU. So obviously it hurts in a lot of different ways, but that is the new world that we live in college athletics. And unfortunately, DJ Thomas leaves and enters the portal. But again, he still has the opportunity to return if he so chooses to return to WVU. Break to take here on the All Eers podcast. Again, we are going to be joined by former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor and WVU beat writer Mitch Vingle on the other side of this break for his weekly hit of Vingle's Views. This is the All Eers podcast.
Oh, good gravy. The kind made from real premium sausage. The kind that's smothered over deliciousness. The kind you can only get at Tudor's Biscuit World. That's the gravy that's oh so good. It's the perfect topping to your biscuits or your taters, and even makes a delicious side. It's oh so good gravy. Tudor's Biscuit World. We're dripping with oh good gravy.
HD Media Game Day is your streaming home for the best in live high school sports across West Virginia. Featuring football, basketball, soccer, and more, HD Media Game Day brings the action to you for free, exclusively on our YouTube channel and at hdmediagameday.com. When you can't make it to the game, HD Media Game Day has you covered.
Welcome back into the newest episode of the All Eers podcast, a WVU athletics-based podcast here at HD Media and the Charleston Gazette-Mail. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy, and here for his weekly hit, Vingle's Views. Yes, the long anticipated, I know it was just last week, but the long anticipated Vingle's Views with former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor and WVU beat writer, Mitch Vingle. Mitch, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, buddy. It's been forever, it seems like, huh?
Well, it's like a family reunion. Every time that we get together, it always feels like, who's going to bring the dessert, who's bringing the main entree, that whole kind of thing. So we'll have to.
That's right.
My people have to talk to your people, and we'll have to get that coordinated.
Well, I'll tell you, after Easter, I have a bunch in the fridge leftovers. So I've got a bunch that I can bring to the table. That's for sure.
Now, are you a big chocolate guy on Easter, or are you just kind of more of a jelly bean kind of guy?
No, I'm more of a chocolate guy for sure. My mom, and my dad is 88. My mom is 86. And as we went down there, they're still living in their house. They're still getting around. And she tried to push a bunch of jelly beans on me. And I was like, no, I think I'm good. I'll just take some ham, chicken, and we'll be good to go for the week.
Man, I should have been at your all's place. But then again, we went to Chili's after our Easter service on Sunday. So that triple dipper, the old-fashioned trio fajitas was also good too. So we'll call it even with that. So
well, as long as you brought some home and
trust me,
have some leftovers.
Trust me, for people that see me, they're not looking at me saying he's the kind of guy that brings leftovers home unless I'm completely full. I'll tell you that much. I will truthfully tell the truth with that one because yeah.
They're leftovers.
Exactly.
I got you.
That's neither here nor there. But anyway, enough about food, even though I am now hungry thanks to our discussion. But you and I talked over the weekend about what we were wanting to discuss leading into your appearance this week. And I thought you had a really good point that I want to try and spend some time on with this, and that is looking back at the college basketball crown where 8 teams competed for a prize pool of about $500,000 in the championship game. The winner got an additional $300,000. So kind of take the floor. I mean, obviously you were able to watch WVU in its 3 games in Las Vegas. What was your biggest takeaway from that event compared to what people are traditionally know around this time of the year with the NCAA tournament and the NIT?
Yeah, it was kind of weird to me. I didn't know how to feel about it. I mean, I've covered West Virginia for I think 38 years, and it was just a weird feel. I mean, because I guess the kids got the money, right? West Virginia, I don't think they were out. I think they got their hotels and travel and all that paid for, but from what I understand, the kids got the money. So, I mean, it was just weird. And, I know a lot of people really enjoyed, the 3 victories, beating Creighton, beating Stanford, and obviously beating Oklahoma, which ditched the Big 12, was always cool. And, I know my gal Joni, she loved it and everything, but I'll tell you what kind of started this discussion was we were at a little Italian place, and Joni was talking to somebody who didn't see it. She was all happy and said, "Did you see that we won? The crown and everything?" And the Italian guy stopped and he looked there and he goes, "So what's that mean? You're number 69?" And it got me to thinking. I'm like, yeah, it kind of fed into my feeling about kind of what a weird thing is. Was it a point of pride, that they won this? I guess in a way. Is it something you hang in the banners, at the Coliseum? I don't know. I mean, obviously what was it, 2007, the NIT? I know they have a banner up at that. So just kind of a weird thing and something I thought we could banner back and forth about. What's your take on it?
I think it's two things. One, I think it is good in the sense that it is controlled. And what I mean by that is with how people have manipulated the whole NIL and transfer portal system that we're seeing nowadays, I think the tournament's good because it's controlled. You're not bribing anybody. It's a contractual agreement between Fox and its representing partners as well, with the Big 12 being one of those in that contract. So I like the fact that they're getting teams involved that did not make the NCAA tournament or the NIT as well. I do like the fact that they are paying the players. Now, I'm not saying that needs to be the top reason why, because if you're a competitor, the ability to put on the jersey one last time and compete for your university, whether or not you take pride in that, that's a personal decision to make. But I think if a competitor puts the jersey back on and then goes and competes one last time, I love the idea. Now, I think the flip side of that now is, are we getting to the point where the postseason field or the postseason feel is oversaturated now? Because now there were rumors and murmurs about how the NCAA tournament field could be expanding to over 70 teams here soon. So then what does that do to the NIT? Then what does that do to the Crown? But then the other side of it too is, like, you look back on that weird year in one of Hugs' last seasons when they played in the CBI and lost to Coastal Carolina at home in the first round. That just seemed weird. But with this, it just didn't feel weird. It didn't seem weird at all. I don't know if that's because there was a monetary value to it. I do know that if you do go and compete in the NCAA tournament, though, teams are being paid, but it is off of a unit system. So I don't really know the logistics of how it all gets broken down per player. Obviously, WVU is very senior heavy, so how much do they get allocated money-wise compared to the younger guys? I don't know. I'm very up in the air with it. I like the idea. And one of the things that you and I talked about too was it kind of had a feeling of what the basketball tournament, or better known as the TBT, has during the summer whenever teams compete or alumni teams compete for a chance at $1 million. So that was a really good comparison, and that's not the only time I had heard someone draw a comparison between the TBT and the college basketball crown.
And again, you go back, is that something you put up, a banner up? It's like when the Lakers, remember, they raised the banner for that in-season NBA Cup.
Yeah.
And does that come closer or equal, what do they have, 17 championship banners? I mean, it's just, like I said, it's just, and you talked about, watering everything down, and if they do expand, like I guess everybody's expecting now, it'll really water it down. And but you think about it, when somebody asked Joni and said, "What does that make them number 69?" Because you've got 68 in the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. Well, remember that teams like Indiana, Virginia Tech, San Diego State, they sat out. They didn't play in the NIT. They didn't play, in the Crown. And then you go, Auburn did play in the NIT. So was it 69? Was it 70? Was it 75? So yeah, you're getting it really, really watered down. So I don't know. It's just something to watch for sure.
And I think the other side of it too is, you look at it from a coaching perspective with Ross Hodge. Now you kind of feel that hopefully nothing happens between now and the beginning of next year, knock on wood. 'Cause nowadays you just never know. But also on top of that, with West Virginia's luck, it would be their 5th different coach since 2020. So I think from a coaching perspective, I think it allows Hodge a little bit of confidence and a momentum boost leading into the offseason. Because now you're bringing in arguably one of the most talented recruiting classes from a high school perspective into next season, which is led by Miles Sadler, who should be an All-American. But I think going back with Hodge, now you have some momentum in the offseason. Hopefully being one of the ultra-rare teams to end a season on a win, that could obviously be something that you can push for when talking to a transfer portal recruit. But the other side of it too is, if there's still money left over from the Crown, because again, if you try and divvy up that allotment that you collect during that week in Vegas, how much more do you have left over? And then where does that go? Is that something you can you can take $25,000, $50,000 and add that on to, a $750,000 contract or $750,000 agreement or offer for another recruit and tack on another $50,000, make it an even $800,000. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
Yeah, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, exactly. And trust me, I'm the furthest thing from a financial advisor with this, but I think from a monetary value, it works in the immediate realm. But then now you're asking, okay, what can this do down the road, if anything, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think you make a great point because, we talk about what this Crown tournament meant and all that, but two things. One, it's a point of pride because any time that the kids put on, the the West Virginia uniforms, the fans will watch and cheer and that'll make them feel good. But I think also, like you said with Ross Hodge, it's something for him to hang his hat on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked before, especially about the W Women's program, about connecting with fans, connecting with, the community. And I think there's something that he can hang his hat on and say, look, we got better. We won this crown, and now there's something that we can build on. I think those are the two things that are best to come out of this crown tournament victory.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fan perspective as well. I want to throw these numbers out here because Fox Sports did release this. The peak audience for the WVU college basketball crown title game against Oklahoma on Sunday reached 1.18 million spectators on television. So think about that. Over 1 million people watched a tournament that people were playing for money. So think about that. I think that's significant in a lot of ways. And I know obviously a lot of those were probably WVU fans, but then the average viewer count on Fox was 950,000, and this year's audience was a 16% increase versus last year's Crown Championship game, and it was up 36% over the 2026 men's NIT final average. So that's something to consider as well, because the more eyes, and I know Ren Baker's talked a lot about this from a branding perspective, the more times you can get in front of a national audience, the better off that you are. But the flip side of that is, though, don't get blown out by 25, 30 points on national television. That's the big thing. But whenever you see a team like West Virginia fight back from a 13-point second half deficit and then rally from a 6-point deficit in overtime whenever Oklahoma scored the first 6 points of overtime, and then WVU obviously outscores them down the stretch 13-0, that shows the West Virginia brand and what Coach Ross Hodge is wanting to do at WVU. Do you see it? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like that the more eyes you get with that, the better off you're going to be. Now, again, the flip side is
you've got
don't
to
get blown
stay
out.
relevant.
Yes,
Taylor. I mean, you have to stay relevant. In basketball and football, and that's been the fear lately. That both of these programs have slipped in relevance, and with expansion, with the way conferences shift here and there, you always want to be up there in the spotlight to some degree. And that's a good thing. I saw just before we started taping today, Andy Katz had West Virginia basketball in his top 36. Now it was 35, but still, at least you're making that cut to stay up there a little bit, so that recruits and I don't know what the athletes these days want to go to your program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to ask you one last thing. I know I was actually looking at the time, and dude, we've just been, as the kids call, flow state right now with just talking. Cause this is a really good conversation. I think a lot of people aren't really talking a whole lot about this, but I think the other side of it too is you saw, and I saw, and everyone else saw the unbelievable final act of Honor Huff. 38 points, had 5 threes in the first half. Then he had 3 in the second half for a grand total of 8. He became the new single-season leader in three-pointers made at WVU, passing Frank Young with 117 in that 07 season that you alluded to earlier. And I want to ask you our question of the day for this podcast. So I asked earlier, and I asked last episode, Honor Huff is a top blank shooter in WVU men's basketball history. If I had to ask you that question, from all the players that you've seen, where would you put Honor Huff in regards to some of the more elite shooters to come through WVU men's basketball?
Oh, my goodness. Geez. I would say top 15, maybe. The reason I hesitate is because he had a lot of off days.
Mm-hmm.
But still, I mean, what a way to go out, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder. I was kidding Johnny. I said, because how well he played, how well the team played. I was like, if they would have had that money carrot in front of them the whole season, I just wonder how good this team really could have been.
Don't disagree.
But we certainly saw what Honor Huff did, in that last game. And yeah, I mean, West Virginia's had a lot of great shooters. I mean, if you go back, there's not a lot of NBA players to come out of the program. Obviously, Jerry West is going to be at the top of the shooters list and all, but yeah, I would have to say, just thinking off the top of my head, he would have to be a top 15 shooter in program history, at least from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was telling someone else, his green light, I'm going to be honest with you, I've seen a lot of basketball in my youthful years. His green light might be the greenest green light I've ever seen in my life.
Right.
And it's just unbelievable. I mean, the volume that he shoots, but the way that he can create his own shot, I think he definitely cemented his mark as a Mountaineer in his only season. And I think people will latch on to him like what they have with a lot of different players that have transferred into the program. And I think, before I let you go, I think the one thing that he has is a personality. And I think back to the last true player that we had in a short period at WVU that people have consistently latched on to is Eric Stevenson. I'm not saying that he is Eric Stevenson. I'm just saying from the personality that he has, how fluently he talks, he's a guy that 10, 15 years from now, people are still going to be talking about Honor Huff and the way that he played in this 25-26 season.
That would be a good exercise or fun thing for you to look at one day when you especially during the summer months or something, and just go back to Dale Blaney, Lowe's Moore, Alex Ruoff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have I don't know, McBride,
Deuce, yeah.
I mean, there's a handful, but you'd have to look at field goal percentage, figure in 3-pointers. I mean, Jerry West, I think he had 3-point opportunities.
A lot different
time.
story.
So, yeah, but that would be something fun to do because, you had some shooters, but just not a heck of a lot of NBA players that came from West Virginia. So it'd be neat to sit down and look at that.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Mitch, we appreciate your time as always with your weekly hit of Vingles Views. So appreciate the conversation. Really good insight this week, and we'll chat with you next week.
All right, buddy. Look forward to it.
Thank you.
Have a great week.
Yep, you do the same. There he is, Mitch Bingle, former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor and former WVU beat writer as well. Break to take here. We'll hit on a couple other notes. On the other side of this break, this is the All Eers podcast.
As the game gets faster, stronger, more dynamic, your equipment has to keep up. Introducing the Riddell Axiom, the next evolution in football protection, designed to match the speed and strength of today's athlete. Contact West Virginia Riddell representative Casey Turley at 304-552-5960. Gear up, play smart, stay protected.
HD Media Sports is your one-stop destination for top high school and college sports coverage in the Mountain State. From Morgantown to Mingo County, our award-winning reporters keep you informed about your favorite teams and players, including exclusive coverage of the Marshall Thundering Herd and the West Virginia Mountaineers. Follow HD Media Sports on Facebook to stay up to date on the latest news, features, and game coverage.
Final segment here of the All Eers podcast. We appreciate former Charleston Gazette-Mail sports editor Mitch Vingle for joining us on his weekly hit, Vingle's Views. Lots of great insights, so be sure to go check that out. A couple notes to end the show. David Sills, former WVU wide receiver David Sills, signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just a couple of days ago. He caught 18 passes for 191 yards and 2 touchdowns last season for the Atlanta Falcons. So congratulations to David Sills. He now joins former WVU quarterback Garrett Green, who was a wide receiver last year for Tampa Bay. So now you have 2 wide receivers from WVU in Tampa Bay. Then the other note I got for you guys, and I found this of way of Golden Blue Nation. I thought this was a really interesting note. Toby Okani and Javon Small are both playing for the Memphis Grizzlies right now in the NBA. They became the first Mountaineers to play in an NBA game together since 1962, whenever Jerry West, Hot Rod Hundley, and Bobby Smith all played for the Los Angeles Lakers in a single game. And that got me thinking. And then I also credit Ethan Bach as well, who is an avid WVU sports follower. And he mentioned that since the 2021-22 season, there have been 57, let me say it again, 57 different Mountaineer men's basketball players who have worn a jersey for the Golden Blue and have played at WVU. So that got me thinking. I actually texted producer Sean about this because a guy in myself that I like WVU basketball. I've always followed it. One of my questions with Tony Caridi, whenever I got my internship with him way back when in 2018, he put me on the spot really quickly, and he asked me if I could name the starting 5 from the 2010 Final Four team. I looked at him, I said, watch this, and I just spitball immediately. This is what no life, no touching grass does to you. So we're bringing producer Sean on now, and Sean is going to have the list in front of him of the 57 players, and I'm going to try and list how many I can in a minute. So I have the timer in front of me. You have the list, and here we go. 3, 2, and 1. So you have Javon Small, Toby Okani. You have Sean McNeil, Taz Sherman, Trey Mitchell, Sidney Njaye, Trey Mitchell, Gabe Osaboyan, Isaiah Cottrell, Jalen Bridges, Kedrian Johnson, Kobe Johnson, Josiah Harris, Josiah Davis. Crap. Okay, let's go this season. This season, Honor Huff. You have Trayson Eaglestaff, Harlan Obioha, Brendan Lorient, Jasper Floyd, Amir Jenkins, DJ Thomas, Jaden Forshai, Chance Moore. Last season, you had Amani Hansberry, Javon Small. I already said Javon Small. Tucker DeVries. Then you also have Jonathan Powell, Sincere Harris. Trying to think, who else am I blanking on? Let's go to that weird year now. I know I'm bouncing around. Let's go to that weird year. Quinn Zielinski, a cook, Kerr Carissa, and that's a minute. So how many was that? So a little over a minute. So Kerr Carissa was the last one. How many did I get? As he's tallying up the votes. Let's see what we get here. I don't think I did too well. I probably got 30 if I had to guess.
The grand total for Taylor's counting of players since 21-22 that have checked in for the Mountaineers, 32.
Wow.
32 of 57.
That's pretty good. And that disclosure now. You Scouts Honor, I did not have a phone in front of me to look at this. Now, granted, I looked before, like yesterday when we were doing this, when we were talking about this. I looked at it yesterday, and we actually talked about this amongst media members at the WVU Marshall baseball game Wednesday evening. It was myself, Cody Nesper, Justin Jackson, and Kevin Kinder, and the 4 of us were talking about that with some other kids from the Daily Athenaeum, and we just started spitballing, and we eventually got there. It took a little bit longer than 57. Took a lot longer than a minute, I should say. As Sean has now indicated to me, I have a big fat F of 56%.
56%. That's our WVU beat writer, Taylor Kennedy. 56%, guys.
56% is pretty good, though. I
don't know if you took the same tests I did in school, but 56%, they start calling the parents in.
But you have to understand, we're not talking based off of like performance. We're talking like just recollection, memory.
You got half of them, over half.
Yeah, exactly. That should be that's good. See, now take back what you said about the whole WVU beat writer thing.
I stand on it.
Okay, whatever. I understand.
Back to you, Taylor.
Thank you, Sean. I feel like we're on a game show now. Anyway, we appreciate you all listening to that and that entertainment there for the last couple of minutes of the show. Again, special thanks to Mitch Bingle. Speaking of guests, we're going to have a very special guest on next Tuesday's edition of the All Eers podcast, and a guy that a lot of Mountaineer fans are going to enjoy listening to yet again. He's a guy that I'm not going to say anything else because I'm terrible at keeping a secret, so I'm going to leave it alone. But you are going to want to subscribe. You're going to want to tune in, and you're going to want to have your notifications on for next Tuesday's edition of the All Eers podcast because, again, it's pretty special, as I do say so myself. So, again, you can follow us on all of our social media platforms. Links are in the description. My social media handle on Twitter and Mitch's social media handle on Twitter are also in the bio, and we will see you all next Tuesday for the newest edition of the All Eers podcast with the spring football game coming up next Saturday. That'll do it for me and producer Sean. I'm your host, Taylor Kennedy, signing off. This is the All Eers podcast.
You have been listening to the All Eers podcast, powered by HD Media.